to the Town Council Work Study Session. Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Schlum.
Here.
Councilmember Cantino.
Here.
Councilmember Leger.
Here.
Vice Mayor Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Hanson.
Here.
Councilmember Dickey.
Here.
Councilmember Elke.
Here. Thank you. And Councilmember Leger, you heard him. He's on the phone, so he can still hear us. We can't talk about him. Welcome, everyone. Tonight's exciting agenda items to talk about the 2012 State Centennial coming up, 100 years of statehood for the state we all love. I just thought as we get started here tonight, in light of what's occurred in Tucson, unfortunately, just have a moment of silence before we get started and maybe say a prayer for those that are affected, impacted, injured, and otherwise before we get started, and then we'll move on to some exciting discussion on the Centennial. So join me in prayer or some silence, if you would. Thank you very much. Item number 2, presentations and discussion relating to the state and town efforts regarding the 2012 Arizona Centennial Celebration. I know we've got some great folks here that have been helping to move things forward and plan and put a lot of energies towards things, and we'll kick it off over to Councilmember Dickey to get us started on our discussion and introductions.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for having this session on this great topic. But I did want to mention also, like you did, that this is our first public meeting since the terrible tragedy that happened on Saturday in Tucson, and we can take our opportunity here to renew our commitment to continue with our service to the community as our dear Gabby was doing that morning. We had our hopes for full recovery, of course, to those who were injured, and our wishes somehow for comfort to the families who lost their loved ones and had their lives changed forever on a sunny Saturday morning. It's good, though, to be here to be able to talk about something that's positive and that we're actually looking forward to celebrating, which is a Valentine's Day birthday party for Arizona, 100 years strong, on February 14th, 2012. I just wanted to let you know a little bit of how this all came about. Last February, I went to the first Centennial Summit that they had, and I caught the fever, the energy and the enthusiasm that, and I brought it back to Lucky Rick and Lucky Jay, who the mayor formed this town Centennial Committee with Community Services Director Mark, Mayor, and I as co-chairs, and Councilwoman Cassie Hanson. And we added several members, and we met, I think, 2 or 3 times. We're having another meeting next week. I had the chance early on, like pretty much right back then, last February, to talk to Jenny Willigrod and to Charlotte McCluskey and that wonderful group that are doing that terrific greening of downtown, which is the aspect of our visioning plan. They established the greening of downtown as an officially sanctioned Centennial Legacy project already, planting, of course, as we all know, the shade trees down by the fountain, and gaining and still needing much support and very much uniting our community in that effort. Most recently, I attended the final summit that they had in December, where the Copper Chopper custom motorcycle was on display. And hopefully later we'll maybe hear a little bit from Francesca about that. At that final summit is where I learned that these projects are, they suggested that maybe these projects could reflect how communities want to tell their story, which for Fountain Hills often revolves around our volunteers and other great leaders who contribute generously to our community. So we looked inward to the many special activities that we already have in place here, and how by creating maybe a centennial theme, a common theme, that we could involve a large number of people, a lot of participants in our own natural way that we would do that in Fountain Hills. I just applied for official status, trying to make, and like I say, some of these projects have already been sanctify, but to try to get our 100 event concept to be a sanctioned event. And I think Kathy's probably going to talk about our efforts with the 100 events in a little while, too. At this final summit, I was so impressed by the work of the commission and the state staff and the presentations, and I'm not really just saying that just because our application is pending there, but I thought it would be so great if they could come here to Fountain Hills and share this presentation to the broader community, which we're able to do through Channel 11, and they graciously, of course, accepted our invitation. And before I introduce Karen Churchard, who's the Executive Director of the Arizona Centennial 2012 Foundation, I wanted to recognize our members that we have on our committee, mention a little bit of their talents. They're obviously members for a lot more that they will contribute. First with Councilmember Cassie Hansen. Of course, she's got so many connections and deep connections to our community and a keen interest in our history. Dr. Bill Meyer, who you know is our superintendent of the Fountain Hills Unified School District, he's going to be involved with our, obviously, education coordination, but also some team activities and graduations and clubs and outreach with other schools that we have and youth activities in town. Jackie Miles, who's here, I'm glad to see that that you could make it. She's primarily, I guess I would say, Fountain Hills Cultural and Civic Association, but you have so many other personal and organizational connections here and ties. Francesca Carosa is here, and she's giving us a good perspective from the business aspect of things and the Chamber of Commerce, among her other talents. Judy Compers is with our River of Time Museum. She's a representative for that, and she's going to keep our historical perspective in line and be our liaison with other communities in the region. Rory Magenti, who couldn't be here, is our Fort McDowell partner, and he attended the summits actually too. And he brings his promotional and professional experiences to our projects. And then Mark Mayer, of course, who I mentioned, who's our director, and he's staffing and co-chairing this for our town. There are other people here who will be presenting too. The great Centennial Circle idea will be presented by Jerry Miles and Sandy Thompson, also from FHCCA. So now I would like to welcome Karen Churchard, who's going to give us a great overview of the state efforts so far and their future plans. And I'm sure that you all join me in welcoming Karen to Fountain Hills.
Welcome, Karen.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today to make a presentation. And Councilmember Dickey, you'll notice that, whoops, wrong one. There it is. That we have a new look already since our last summit. And I'm excited as you guys are the first to see that.
As we should be.
Of course. We actually wanted to have the Copper Chopper be at your event. Be our first event beyond the fair, but we were too late for the request, so we missed that. But I'm going to quickly go through where we're at with our centennial, and then open it up to any questions or however Mayor and Councilmember Dickey would like to proceed. We are turning 100 years old, as was mentioned, on February 14th, 2012, and we're starting our countdown to centennial on February 14th, 2011. Quickly, I just want to tell you a little bit about who we are. We have a Centennial Commission, which was established by Governor Napolitano and then again by Governor Brewer. And one of our tasks was to set up a 501c3 foundation, which we've established, which all of our board of directors and our volunteer committees fall under that area. There's 4 different categories of involvement. The Centennial Commission has chosen signature projects and events that we will fund and we will actually manage and produce. And then the communities and nonprofits we've asked to get involved in either having an official centennial event designation or through a sanctioning of a legacy project. And I'm going to tell a little bit about each of these. Starting with our signature projects, the main project that we're working on is the Arizona Centennial Museum. It may not have that actual name when it's all said and done, so that's a placeholder right now. It's currently the Arizona Mining and Mineral Museum on 15th Avenue in Washington, near the tip of Wesley Bowen Plaza in the state capitol. And the concept is really to transform that museum into more of the Arizona experience. We want to talk about Arizona in a meaningful way beyond the 5 Cs that really started our economy as a state, but we also want to talk about our great Arizona. The mayor mentioned our love for Arizona. We want to showcase our geography, our rich history, and we really want to talk about not only the 5 Cs, but what's the future of Arizona. So we want to really have a place where our children can go and learn about bioscience and solar in a really fun, interactive way. So that's our goal for the museum and our major signature piece. Centennial Way is a federal transportation enhancement project that the Department of Administration chose and selected, and asked the City of Phoenix, of course, since they own the street or are responsible for the street, to take on that project. We are looking at concepts right now. This is probably not the last rendering. We're in a design-build process. We plan to break ground on February 14th of this year, and the completion date is scheduled for December of 2011. The concept of Centennial Way is really to have shade structures that talk about our state. We will have a marker for each county of our state, the 15 counties, and we're also working with the tribes to have some type of a marker on the 22 tribes as well. Another project that we would really like to get the school systems involved in, and certainly here in Fountain Hills, is our Centennial Penny Drive, which we are just now kicking off with the different education associations and the schools. We're encouraging sign-ups right now. The official date to kick off is February 9th of this year, which is actually has a historic date. That's when Arizonans ratified the Constitution in 1911. So we're trying to not only ask the children to help raise pennies to clean our copper dome at the state capitol, but also teach them some educational history about our state and how we began. We, as the 48th state, we decided that we would run the drive for 48 days, and ironically it lands on April 15th, so maybe another lesson there to talk about taxes. And we will have school awards, and we're really excited about this project. Freeport-McMoRan came on as a sponsor, the Arizona Republic, and BASHES, so we're working with them. And this is a picture of what the dome should look like and will look like soon once we raise the pennies. Another project is the memorials in Wesley Bowen Plaza. There are 3 specific memorials that we'd like to have refurbished, starting with the USS Arizona Anchor Memorial and the Ernest W. McFarland Memorial, and finally the Peace Officer Memorial, all tied to our veterans and those who provide service and safety to us. The USS Arizona Anchor itself is in great condition. Unfortunately, the surrounding plaques and materials need to be refurbished. We're hoping to have this updated and accomplished by December 7th of 2011 for the 70th anniversary on the attack on Pearl Harbor. Historical Markers is a funded program through federal transportation enhancement funds. We have unfortunately many of our markers have been defaced, like the one you see on your left, but we also have beautiful markers as well. And our goal is to come up with a new sustainable marker that we can have 100 new markers identified and placed throughout the state by the end of 2012. So we're working with ADOT and Federal Transportation on this project right now. The Centennial Trees Project, and I knew all about Fountain Hills and their greening project, and glad to know that that's exactly what we've been asking communities and counties to really come on board and plant trees in a sustainable, maintainable way. We kicked off this project last year at the Pioneer Military Memorial Park, and we're also working with the Arizona Tree Community Council to talk about a Put Down Roots program for the Centennial, as well as really talking about the great trees of Arizona. So we're shaping this up, but our main objective is to really ask cities and counties to plant trees. The Centennial Challenge is a volunteer program. We are working on finalizing this with the Governor's Office of Children, Youth, and Families, which has a volunteer division. Right now we're looking at Centennial Challenge, a call to action to really encourage citizens to sign up and serve 100 hours in our centennial year. So you'll hear more about that in the coming months. And the final signature project is the U.S. Postal Service project, which will be a stamp unveiling in 2011, and a first day issue will be sometime the first part of February of 2012. Moving on to signature events. The Copper Chopper is our mascot, if you will, and was designed by Paul Yaffe of Phoenician, and it's a promotion that's being done right now by KTVK Channel 3. We are traveling it throughout the state. It has a formal exhibit stage, as you can see on the right. That's the rendering of the actual photograph, but it's a prominent exhibit to showcase the Copper Chopper, and we are selling drawing tickets to win it to help fund for some of these projects. Our major event that we're holding in 3 locations throughout the beginning in September of 11 and culminating in February of 12 is the Arizona Centennial Best Fest. And the idea on this major street festival, which will be held in Prescott, Tucson, and Phoenix, and those 3 cities were chosen because they're all territorial capitals. And the idea is to have the best of Arizona in all different aspects. And we also plan to tie in national entertainers that have ties to Arizona. And the Mormon Tabernacle Choir is also going to be featured at the Phoenix event at the U.S. Airways Center, which we are very excited about. They haven't been to Arizona since 1968, so it's pretty big deal. And then part of our Best Fest concept is to have 3 villages. We've been working with the tribes, the Tourism Tribe Association, on having an Indian village, a Hispanic village, and a Western village, and then we'll have 6 other pavilions that are tied to the future of Arizona. So we want to, again, talk about bioscience, solar, and sports and those types of things that shaped our state, or will shape our state. The Arizona Centennial Ride is a motorcycle event that we're tying back because the mascot is a big part of our promotion and our awareness, and it will be the drawing for the person who wins the Copper Chopper will be at the Arizona Centennial Best Fest in Phoenix. We're encouraging a ride to Phoenix through the motorcycles. We're hoping Dirk Bentley will serve as honorary chair, who is from Phoenix. The Union Pacific Steam Locomotive Tour is a project we're working with Union Pacific as well as New Mexico, who shares our centennial year. And this event we're looking at October 2011. We should have final dates from Union Pacific next month. And it will travel through New Mexico and then come into the state of Arizona, primarily in the southern part of our state. It will come up to the Phoenix area. There will be stops and whistle stops along the way. So we're planning that with them. And our final signature event is actually Statehood Day, the 100th Statehood Day, Tuesday, February 14th, where we're planning a sunrise ceremony at the Capitol. And we've been working with the tribes, and we're encouraging them to have sunrise ceremonies in their own locations. And following that, we are planning on some type of a centenarian brunch first with the approximately 750 centenarians that reside in Arizona. And we're encouraging other cities, which Prescott and Flagstaff have already signed on to do brunches in their towns, and we'll have one in Phoenix as well. We plan on some type of a rededication of Washington Street. We've been talking about a parade, kind of going back and forth on that, and we'll be finalizing that in the coming weeks. And then that evening we'll culminate with Fandango Arizona, a big gala where we'll invite elected officials, celebrities, entertainers, and have tributes at that event. Moving on to the community side of it, the sanctioned events are really, we're encouraging cities and towns, tribes and counties to participate in a way that's meaningful to them. And knowing that we all have financial challenges, one of the easiest ways to get involved is to take one of your existing events and have a centennial component and then have the official sanctioning. So in some cases, like the Arizona Centennial History Makers Gala, that's an event that was created by the Historical League specifically for the Centennial, but obviously the 125th annual Prescott Frontier Days is a rodeo that's been around for a long time, and they're adding the Centennial component. Other examples run from the Stockyards Restaurant that's doing an Arizona Influencers Project to the Tucson Rodeo, Wickenbird's Gold Rush Days, and Wilcox's Rex Allen Days. So those are just a few ideas. And then the legacy projects, which Fountain Hills has that sanctioning. Some other examples, running from permanent displays like the Exodus Project up in the Verde Valley area. Williams is working on the Arizona State Railroad Museum. Arizona's Initial Point, which is up on Monument Hill in Avondale, where surveys first began for our state. They're building interpretive signage and a trail. And again, everything from a pocket park in Tucson to the rehabilitation of Silver King Hotel, a mural Centennial Walk in Flagstaff. Old Vale's doing a restoration of their post office, and Cochise County has a traveling exhibit that is going throughout the community. So the last part is really just to get involved and talk a little bit about where we're headed with our branding. We're really looking forward to working with the media to talk about Arizona create a consistent messaging and really talk to Arizonans about the Centennial in a fun way. Talk about our amazing state, our dazzling state, and talk about our stargazing, trailblazers, and then we'll really start focusing on AZ 100 years, as that you'll see a lot. And we're also having some taglines, history still in the making. We're working on banners for the street banners for different cities and Washington Street. And eventually we'll be working on banners for outdoor billboards that have different looks and feels. And then hopefully we'll get to an advertising standpoint where we can really start talking about Arizona in a positive way and all the great culture and arts that we have, and speak to the Lowell Observatory and Frank Lloyd Wright and just all those types of positive stories. We have a merchandise company that's doing all the collectibles and wearables that will have our logo on it, our seal, if you will, and as well as clothing. And finally, right now our website is finally, yay, live and working. So we encourage you to go to Arizona100.org to learn more about all the events and projects that we are planning. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mayor and council members, if you have any questions or however you want to proceed.
Good, thank you very much. Any questions for Karen while she's here with us? Probably have one or two coming. Jenny, Councilmember?
I just wanted to ask you, who was the person, there's a gentleman that's going to actually be helping with the museum, and he had a really kind of a neat history. I thought maybe you could share that.
Yes, Mayor and council members, Patrick Gallagher, who's with Gallagher and Associates out of Washington, D.C., is working with us currently pro bono. And Patrick's background is he's a world-renowned designer of museums. He's the person who designed the Spy Museum in Washington, D.C., the Gem Collection, and many actually exhibits in the Smithsonian in D.C. I was working on the Wartime Museum down in Atlanta, the Mob Museum in Las Vegas. He's doing he's doing a national museum for Singapore. He's just doing amazing work throughout the world. And what's great is that he is on the cutting edge of all the technology and the interactive type displays that our children are so want to see and be able to touch and feel. So we're really excited that when this museum does reopen, which we're hoping is November of 2012, that this will be a great place for students and children to come and enjoy.
Got anything, Councilmember Leger, any questions? All right, Councilmember Dickey, what is up next? I think we're going to move on to Mark Mayer. Or did you have more to cover before we moved on to Mark?
No, that's exactly what I wanted to see if we could move on to Mark and some of our other committee members who probably have some things they would like to contribute and offer, and hopefully Karen can stay and listen to some of our ideas.
Yeah, thanks again, Karen, for coming out tonight, being with us. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you. I will keep my comments very brief.
Well, that was great. Thanks, Mark. Next up, we have
A potential security concern? What does that mean?
yeah, what do you got a virus you're loading?
I'm not sure.
You're not supposed to go to those sites.
That's Parks and Recreation.
Yes.
You know.
There we go. Hopefully, this is a logo and a slogan that should be familiar with everybody in this room. As you know, the town has been working now and serving on this committee, both myself and Park Supervisor Don Clark, for over a year now. And the accomplishments I think that the group has made are clearly kind of in character what the Centennial Celebration, and indeed has been designated as a Centennial project. As you mentioned earlier, Co-Chair Jenny did, is that they have now done 2 phases. They're planning on a 3rd and potentially a 4th phase. The next one coming up this next spring, as we move into the spring, another one potentially this next fall. It all, of course, depends on the breadth, depends on the extent of funding. But I did want to pass along an update that I got just this week. I think went out to all the committee members that they have now crossed the $80,000 mark of donations between the grants and mostly private donations. So that is a very worthy effort that they have made and continue to make for fundraising. So again, all of those dollars go into the park, and you can see the benefits between the 2 tree plantings and the gardens that have gone in so far. The next phase that's being discussed is a potential wedding grove to work in conjunction with and offer another venue in the park for private weddings and receptions and things like that. So again, something that would be potentially very well received by the public. I did also want to mention that we're not quite as imaginative, I think, as the state is. We do need some dollars, and I did put some funds in a request that is in the Park and Rec budget for $10,000 in behalf of the committee so that we continue our work. We recognize, and one of the things that slowed us down a little bit was we didn't have any dollars to work with, and so hopefully, if the council sees fit to approve that request in this next year's budget, those funds would become available to as early as July the 1st. So, with that, I will exit.
Great, thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark? Good. The next item is Councilmember Hanson talking about the event list.
Well, piggybacking off of what Mark said, the first time the committee met, one of the first things we
I'm
discussed.
going to put this on the screen,
Oh,
or no?
sure. If you have it.
As long as everybody knows it's
Sure. We quickly came to the conclusion that we had one major problem, and that was funding. So we decided, we looked at our community and realized what an active community we do have. We have so many different groups, and we have so many different existing events that there must be a way that we could piggyback off of that, and it would be one way to get the community involvement on a wider basis, and also kind of latch onto the creativity of all these groups to come up with possible projects on their own. But in our first meeting, when we kind of brainstormed about this, we quickly came up with, we identified 25 of our groups, and then we just kind of made up projects that they might consider doing. At the end of that meeting, we figured, well, and just for an example, A-Dog, since A is the first one, we thought, okay, they could make the goal of 100 adoptions. Now, this isn't too bad because they usually get 100 adoptions, but that would kind of incorporate the 100 into their event and kind of make it a centennial event. For Adopt a Street, we thought maybe if there was a decal of the centennial logo that could be placed on the signs. Same thing with our local merchants. Maybe we could get 100 of our local merchants to display either the posters or the decals in their windows. Thought maybe, work with the chamber on a centennial theme for the Thanksgiving Day parade. Even with luminarias, maybe have 100 white bags amidst all the brown bags. Somehow incorporate something into the business showcase, which we hope comes back next year. Maybe in the Stroll and the Glow, we have an aim for 100 carolers and special kinds of lights. Chopper certainly came up, and that seems to be progressing. Possibly a centennial flag at Town Hall. We even talked about a centennial cookbook for those with some really good recipes in town. The Halloween on the Avenue, 100 ghosts. Now that would really make it. Talked about painting the centennial logo on our wall down by the pump house. Incorporating the schools. Bill Meyer was saying that, maybe have like a contest with the kids to write essays. With the music, we thought if there was going to be a particular centennial song that maybe the school band or the choir and the community choir could incorporate that into one of the programs they have during the year. Something to just kind of put the centennial stamp on all these existing events. That being said, then we piggybacked off of some of the really good lists we already have, like the Fountain Hills Community Guide, who lists virtually every organization we have in town with contact information, certainly the phone book, and we compiled a list that we're just kind of playing off of. Right now we're working on contact information, but we'd like to send out a mailing to all these different groups and inviting them to join with us in this year-long of activities and just kind of make their events or something with their businesses or whatever the group may be, just to get the centennial stamp on it so we can make our 100 events.
That's awesome. That's very cool.
So everybody get creative out there and come up with a centennial event.
Good. Thank you very much. Yes,
I
Councilmember
just want
Dickey.
to add on to, Cassie did all this, gathering, which, she really did all this work, putting it in the Excel, and so now what we're doing is it's really a draft document, and so anybody looking at this who, looks at it and thinks it has anything to do with a mandate or us telling anybody what to do, it's not that at all. We welcome everybody's comments and absolutely their suggestions and whether they want to do it or they don't want to do it, and we're not going to be trying to manage each of these. We just would really love to illustrate what kind of a town we have, which is very much represented by something like this, and I really want to thank Cassie for putting this together in a way that we can all work on it and then send it back to her, and she can put all of our input on there. I really appreciate that.
And to our quilters out there, a quilt with a Centennial logo would be really nice in the community center.
Sure.
Cool. Thank you. All right, now we're going to move on to Francesca Carosa, representing the Chamber and the Visitors Bureau. Thanks again, Mark. Francesca, are you going to come up and,
You can if you like, yes.
if you wish? Come on up.
Thank you for this opportunity. And I guess the thing that is most interesting to people right now is, will the Copper Chopper be at the Great Fair? And my understanding as of last week is that indeed we would be able to support that. Sharon, Morgan, and Frank are able to accommodate that request, and we talked to the a person who is involved with moving the display around. So we'd have a small version of it, but it would be in like a really prominent place at Saguaro and the Avenue of the Fountains, and it'd be the smaller display, and it would be there on Friday and Saturday. And just let me turn my back on you 1 second. Am I correct, Frank? Yes, I am.
Will Frank be writing it?
That would take more than a $5 ticket. So, and the Chamber is really happy to be involved in it and to try to bring whatever skills we can. So with that, I think that's all I had to report.
Good, thanks. Any questions for Francesca? Or? Good, thanks for partnering up with us once again, Chamber and everyone in the community. Anything you'd like to share, Judy Comfort? Come on up. Thank you for being involved in this, of course.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council and Karen. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. And I'm delighted to just add a little bit of information for Karen especially, that we are working, first of all, let me tell you the mission of the L. Allen Cruikshank River of Time Museum is to tell the history and preserve the history of the Lower Verde River Valley. Now that includes not only Fountain Hills, but of course the Verdes and Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation. And we also tell the importance of water in the Sonoran Desert. So with that in mind, it's been my pleasure for the last 8 years to work with the Yavapai, and especially the President, Clinton Empatia, who has been gracious enough to teach us a lot of their history so that we can tell it in our museum. And they have been such wonderful neighbors to us. We feel that Fountain Hills and our other communities surrounding here have a very unique situation with our wonderful Native American neighbors. They're still a very small tribe, under 1,000 people, and of course with the gaming, they have been most generous with the money that they have made. We feel that it's very important for the citizens, not only of our area, but for the whole state, to understand that the whole state is fortunate to have had the Native American tribes everywhere and form the basis for our history. And we are trying to develop ways to form this partnership for the future and go forward with our plans for the future, for the next 100 years, with especially Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation. We've got some ideas about perhaps having a joint plaque or marker on the borders of our community The Tribal Council at Fort McDowell also has a Centennial Committee, and Rory Magenti is, as you know, is their events and visitors tourism person, and he's working with us as well. So we're anxious to have all these things unfold. Everyone's got the same problems as mentioned before, that we have to raise money. They have to too. The economy has also hit all of the tribes, even with the gaming. So we all have to be most creative in finding ways to work together. And here in Fountain Hills, we always are trying ways to get our people to understand the Native American culture, and this January Historical Society meeting has as our speaker Vice President Bernadine Burnett, who will tell many of their traditions that even though some of us know them, many don't, and we're delighted and invite all of you to come to that dinner on January 19th. Just call in your reservations. We'll be delighted to have you. And she will answer many questions. So we're always looking for ways to evolve our relationship with them, and the museum in particular has made doing a documentary biography of President Clinton Petilla as one of our centennial projects. And we hope this is going to be distributed when finished, not only statewide but nationally and hopefully internationally. So we're also working with the University of Illinois. The most famous Yavapai of all, Dr. Carlos Montezuma, is a graduate, the first Native American graduate of the University of Illinois, class of 1863, and he was president of that class, went on to become the first Native American male medical doctor. So there's going to be some activity with the Alumni Association there, and we just hope that it enlightens everyone's views of what's happening here within our lower Verde River Valley. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Judy. Before we go on to Jerry and Sandy, I want to see if, Jackie, do you have anything you want to share or anything you want to add before we get on to our next presentation, Jackie Miles?
Oh, thank you for asking, but I don't think I have anything to add.
All right, great. All right, our next presentation is from Mayor Jerry Miles and Sandy Thompson. Talk about our Centennial Circle concept plan. Thank you for your efforts, and thanks for being here tonight.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be back in front of you, Mayor Slum and council members. Sandy and I are here, I think, primarily on behalf of the Public Art Committee of the Fountain Hills Cultural and Civic Association. We're here really as a result of a conversation that I suppose you could call it pillow talk that Jackie and I had a few weeks ago, in which she said it would be nice if we could find a really nice signature project for our centennial. I want to mention, however, Cassie talked about the Public Art Committee having 100 pieces of art. That is one of our stated goals, to have 100 pieces of public art in place by February 14, 2012, and we are quite comfortable that we are going to get there. You have, I think, have one more coming before you at the meeting next week, and that will leave us, I think, 7 short of where we want to be, and I'm quite comfortable that over the next year we can find 7 more. Also want to mention one other centennial project really coming out of the Historical Society. As I think most of you know, Alan Cruikshank and Gene Linder and I have been working for about 2 years on a history of the town of Fountain Hills. And Alan and I were meeting this morning, and we're down to talking about commas and correcting page numbers. So that should be coming out at least on a trial basis shortly, and we hope to publish that during the centennial year, with the first edition being a town centennial project. Anyway, as I say, Sandy, chair of the Public Art Committee, and really one of the brains behind what we want to talk to you today is about the Centennial Circle. Also involved, of course, with that is Boyce Baldwin, who's back here, who's the current president of the Fountain Hills Cultural and Civic Association, and who has done a great deal to help us. With respect to the Centennial Circle, this is what we're talking about. this is a aerial shot of an area that I'm sure you recognize. The piece of sculpture in front of it is called Power of Thought. That was put in place on a temporary basis a few months ago. It's a piece of sculpture by an artist named Victor Isa. We have been working for quite some time to pay the cost of that. The artist was kind enough to give us 18 months to pay that off. And I can tell you that unless he cuts his price just a little bit more, we're going to take every single day of that. But we have every penny of that either in hand or pledged today. Give you an idea, this is a rough draft of the plaque that will go in front of it. There are 43 names on there of people who've given $500 or more to make this happen. We're hoping that this can be dedicated on February 13th of 2011 to kick off the annual, to kick off the year of centennial celebrations. And the artist has told Sandy that he expects to be able to come out here and join us on that. Anyway, the concept behind the Centennial Circle is to create a recognition of what has happened within Arizona over the last years, and a desire to begin improving a piece of real estate that has been sitting vacant in our town since the town was created, and as that circle, it's been sitting absolutely vacant since the City Hall and Community Center were dedicated over 10 years ago. All of us have said it's time that we got started with something, and so what we're proposing tonight is not a completion, but is a beginning. We want to salute our state centennial with a proposal that we hope will attract visitors to our community as well. As I say, we hope to kick this off on February 13th, and then here's what we want to do. First of all, if you look in the upper corner, you will see that we're looking at a reproduction of the Arizona Centennial seal. What we envision is a 10-foot diameter seal. We would ask that a piece of cement be laid down in circular ideas and get you an idea of the perspective. The launching pads for the Frisbee golf around our park are 12 feet in diameter, so this is just a little bit smaller, and if somebody said, hey, it needs to be bigger, that's no problem. We envision putting that in tile, getting one of our local artists to draw up a worksheet to make that done, and then we want to have our kids actually place the tiles in place so that they can become a part of that. We think that it's very important for our young people to know just what's going on, and we think that if they can say, hey, I put that piece of tile down there. Obviously, we'll have close supervision over it to make sure that we don't misspell Arizona, but we think that we want to do that. And then we want to make a monument to the 4 C's. For those of you who grew up, when I grew up as a youngster, it was rather 4 C's. It was 5 C's now. When I grew up, it was 4 C's: cattle, cotton, citrus, and cattle, cotton, citrus, and cotton. Sometime over the last 50 years, we've added climate too, because that's really one of the biggest. What you're looking at here is a suggested base for the monuments we want to do to those. Sandy and I met with Councilman Brown this morning, and he very quickly said, that looks like the base in the Veterans Memorial. And I said, you're absolutely right. I just picked that up and placed a picture. This picture was taken right where we sit, the P-Bar Ranch in 1950 during Roundup and branding. And what we're talking about doing is having plaques made 2 feet by 3 feet on stainless steel. Sandy, you want to take that up there and let them go through? PMS Photometals, who many of you know, does a lot of our plaque work, and they propose to do for us the pictures that we come up with, the 5 C's, in stainless steel, with one exception, and that is, somebody pointed out, the one for copper sure better be out of copper. And they've given us, frankly, a fairly good price. And as you can see, we can get a a remarkably good reproduction of a photograph up there. This, as I say, will represent cattle. For citrus, we hope to get a photograph of the reservation's citrus groves when they're in full bloom. For copper, we're going to go out to Globe and get one of their old pictures, mining pictures. And for cotton, we'll find one somewhere. And then for climate, that's been a little bit of a comment. How do you dedicate it? When we were, a bunch of us sitting around discussing that the other day, somebody said, well, let's do a Four Seasons plaque. So what I put together is a composite photograph. In the upper left-hand corner is spring with a picture of spring training. And in the upper right-hand is a picture of the boat going through the Saguaro Lake. Lower left-hand is a picture of one of the mountain lakes up above the Mogollon Rim. And then in the winter, it's a marvelous shot that I took of one of our golf courses in December of 2004, showing the desert, saguaro cactus, people playing, demonstrating that Four Seasons year-round, we have excellent climate here. I want to emphasize that this is going to be a joint project of multiple organizations. First of all, I've already told you that the Power of Thought has been paid for by numerous organizations, but the Centennial Circle project is to be sponsored by the Fountain Hills Cultural and Civic Association and its Public Art Committee, the Fountain Hills Library Association. When Sandy and I presented that to them a few weeks ago, they were very enthusiastic. They said, we want to be a major part of that. The Historical Society wants to be involved in it. The Chamber of Commerce, we're putting that together, and Linda Kavanaugh said, well, don't leave out the Chamber. We want to be part of that. And, of course, the Fountain Hills Centennial Commission. Jackie has already been appointed as a representative from that commission, and we hope that we'll also be able to count on the Town Council as a sponsor. I have put together a formal presentation to the Arizona Centennial Commission, which I hope you'll be getting in just a few days, talking about that. Now, this was that's the sales pitch. Now, here's what I want to ask the council to do. First, if possible, at your next council meeting, and if not, then at the first meeting in February, I would like you to adopt a resolution or whatever agreeing to designate this circle as the Fountain Hills Centennial Circle, and that will give us the impetus to go forward. What we're going to propose right now is just the beginning. It's not the end of it, but we would like to have the council say, yes, we think this is a good idea, and we're going to say that this is going to be one of the town's projects. Second, as I say, we would like to have the town council agree that it's going to be a joint sponsor of the circle, and let that fact be mentioned in our application to the State Centennial Commission. Third, we would like to have the council allocate funds or begin the allocation process to pay the cost of the seal that's illustrated up there, and we don't have a cost on that yet, but we should have to in a very short basis, and also to pay the cost of the bases for the 5 Cs. We will raise with private funds the cost of the stainless steel or copper plaques and the cost of the littering and other than that in there, but we'd like the town to pick up the cost of that, and we're hoping that that commitment can be made in place, if possible, before February 14th of this year. And then fourth, we'd like to have the town council authorize town staff to work with the Fountain Hills Centennial Circle Committee, which, as I say, is representative of all the various groups I mentioned, to talk about additional improvements to be placed in the circle. Every time we've shown this picture, and we have, Sandy and I were comparing, and we have had so far counting today, 15 meetings with all of you and with others, to talk about this. And everybody said, well, have you thought about this? Well, have you thought about this? Well, yeah, but it's got to be a joint collective effort to do that. So we know that we would like to have the monuments to the 5 Cs. We know that we'd like to have the Centennial Circle. But we know that also when we start talking about this joint planning group, we need to have various types of ground cover over there. That's just crushed granite right now, and it was not intended to be permanent. We've had suggestions that we cover the entire thing with pavers, and somebody said, no, let's do walkways, let's do lawn. Well, we need to think about that, cover the various costs, and cover the aesthetic views of it, but it probably should end up being a combination of all those. And also, we are fairly sure that we need to have some low walls and seating areas where people can come in and sit down around there. And we'd like to see at some part of it a designated gathering area for outdoor public events and meetings. And speaking with the public art, we'd like to have sites for 4 or 5 more pieces of public art. When we first got started on this, we said, wouldn't it be nice to have 24 pieces of art in the community center and town hall area? Well, we're pushing that number right now, and I think if you count the pieces that are inside the community center, we're well over it. But in terms of just what is in that circle area right there, we're in the low 20s, and so we'd like to push that up because people do come, they look at it, and they comment, and the public art portion of our community is becoming a real draw, and we think that that's there. So we want the council to say, yes, let's go ahead and start looking at that, and our objective is that we can have something to present to the council for your 2011-2012 budget time. I can't give you any estimates on ideas because I don't know what's going to cost, but we know that it's got to be done, something that can be done in stages. We met with Tate Elke, and I said $100,000. He said, would you settle for half of that? And I said, this year, yes, but I'm going to come back next year. So we know that whatever we do has got to be in stages, but we don't think that it's physically feasible now to say, okay, this is going to be everything we do. We think it needs to, we need to take these first steps and go the next steps. We've had people suggest, and I think it's good, that in addition to have the 5 Cs, we have displays or something up there talking about the history of Fountain Hills itself. And we have that within the museum, but we need to bring out some of that outside. So it's our hope that this will be, Sandy, do you want to pop in here with anything? It's our hope that this will be, if not the, certainly a signature project of the Fountain Hills Centennial Commission, and one that is going to be here and attracting visitors for many, many years to come. That's my pitch. Is there any questions?
That's terrific. Any questions for Mr. Miles or Ms. Thompson related to the circle or other items?
Yeah. When we met with Dennis this morning, I asked a very logical question. He says, how big is that circle? It's 156 feet in diameter. So get your calculator out and you can figure out the square footage. And it's not huge, but it's too big to simply sit there vacant as it has for all of these years. And we think it's time to move on. And I guess what we're doing now is saying, okay, we have come this far, and now you've got to give us a boost to go forward. And if you do, we're going to be very happy to go forward because, as we've demonstrated with the Power of Thought, we raised the $59,000 purchase price for this piece. And by the way, it was $85,000 when we started. We suggested to him he might like to take a little lower price, and we got him down to $59,000. I'm still working to try to knock a little bit off of that too before we finally make the final payment. But anyway, if it's $59,000, we have that in hand, either in cash in the bank or in pledges, and so I have no question whatsoever. We can raise the cost, raise the money to put the plaques for the 5 Cs, and we hope that we'll be able to come up and say also that this is going to be private money. The Library Association is very anxious to make suggestions, and we'll be meeting with them really just as soon as you all say, okay, go forward. I keep talking. Any other questions?
Good, thank you. Anything else? Very good. Thanks again for
Okay.
the great ideas here, and I'm sure you'll see it on a agenda coming up soon. Anything else, Councilmember Dickey?
Mayor, thank you. Wanted to thank Judy, as usual, for reminding us to stay with a regional mindset. She always mentions our neighbors of the Verdes and Fort McDowell and Salt River Pima Indian community. I appreciate that. And just to also, in talking about regional efforts, I wanted to just point out that some of my colleagues from the American Association of University Women came to hear us tonight because they are also working on projects for this, and we appreciate you coming. I wanted to thank everybody, obviously, who's been involved, and the many people who have actually expressed interest in participating. And we will be calling you for sure as we continue to plan and to implement this celebration, including there may be more individually sanctioned projects, like the greening already is, and probably this, and the circle, maybe a monument or anything that we might do with our neighbors. And we will be reaching out for help, of course, not just for funding. I know we talk a lot about that, but definitely for suggestions, participation, and creativity. It's our intention for this year-long journey. We will be starting, hopefully, on the 13th and culminating on the 14th of 2012. And we do hope that this year-long journey will indeed strengthen the foundations that we have here, the friendship in the community, that we can serve as a beacon for the state, and to use the mayor's expression, that we will have an awesome birthday party.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank
Good.
you.
Arizona's never looked better. But this is good. Any other comments or thoughts before we wrap up and adjourn our work study?
Mayor?
Councilmember Leger.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank all the folks that presented this evening, and the enthusiasm and the awesome slate of activities that are planned. As I reflect and listen to everything I've heard this evening, I don't think our centennial could have come at a better time for the state of Arizona. Thank you.
Thanks a bunch. And Mr. Jard, thanks so much for coming out and being with us tonight. And more power to you. And let us know we can collaborate together best. And, we have a team that's ready to help Arizona shine real well this 100th year celebration. Thank you, everyone that's volunteering and organizations that'll soon be a part if they haven't made commitments already. And have a great night tonight. We're adjourned. All done. Wouldn't that be cool?